are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing the series review, New Lands by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all the links to everything at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And as far as what you can find there, that would be all the episodes of the show, links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show, as well as friends of the show, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel, and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever she's able to join me. A few things that I always like to point out for these shows where I read directly from the nonfiction works of Charles Fort. There will be things he says in his writing that you and or I will not agree with or not like. Also, there will be things he talks about as being mysterious or anomalous that back at that time when he wrote these books about 100 years ago that may not be that way anymore today. And also, last but not least, I apologize in advance for mispronouncing any names of people or places, as words are hard and not all of the words in these books are in English. So that adds another complication to things. Sometimes if I think I can get through a word, I'll try it. Other times I will just say right away that, no, I'm not going to try that word. So, anyway, getting back to his material here. He was talking about basically the history of astronomy in a way, from his point of view, and drawings of planets and the things around them and all those kinds of, that kind of work being done in the last few centuries, couple centuries. So, continuing on here. A new character appears. He is George F. Chambers, fellow Royal Astronomical Society. There we go. I remember what it was now. Author of a long list of astronomical works and a tract entitled "Where Are You Going, Sunday?" He too is earnest. In this early correspondence, nothing ulterior is apparent, and we suppose that it is in the cause of truth that he is so earnest. Says one astronomer that the other astronomer is, in quotation marks, evidently one of those self-sufficient young men who are nothing if not abusive, okay, in quotation marks there. But can Mr. Sadler have so soon forgotten what was done to him on a former occasion after he had slandered Admiral Smith? Chambers challenges Sadler to publish a list of, say, 50, in quotation marks, stupid errors, in quotation marks, in the book. He quotes the opinion of the Astronomer Royal that the book was a work of sterling merit. Airy versus Sadler, he says, which is it to be? Let's respond. We began not very promisingly. Few excitements seemed to lurk in such a subject as double stars, their colors and magnitudes. But slander and abuse are livelier, and now enters curiosity. We'd like to know what was done to Herbert Sadler. Late in the year 1876, Herbert Sadler was elected a Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society. In monthly notices, RAS, January 1879, appears his first paper that was read to the Society. Notes on the late Admiral Smith's cycle of celestial objects. volume 2nd, known as the Bedford Catalog. With no especial vehemence, at least according to our own standards of repression, Sadler expresses himself upon some, in quotation marks, extraordinary mistakes, close quotation marks, in this work. At the meeting of the Society, May 9th, 1879, there was an attack upon Sadler, and it was led by Chambers, or conducted by Chambers, who cried out that Sadler had slandered, try saying that fast, a great astronomer, and demanded that Sadler should resign. In the report of this meeting, published in the Observatory, there is not a trace of anybody's endeavors to find out whether there were errors in this book or not. Chambers ignored everything but his accusation of slander and demanded again that Sadler should resign. In monthly notices 39-389, the Council of the Society published regrets that it had permitted publication of Sadler's paper, in quotation marks, which was entirely unsupported by the citation of instances upon which his judgment was founded, close quotation marks. We find then that it was Mr. Chambers who had revised and published the new edition of Smith's Cycle. In the English Mechanic, Chambers challenged Sadler to publish, say, 50, in quotation marks here, stupid errors, in quotation marks. See page 451, volume 33, English Mechanic. Sadler lists just 50 of these errors, these stupid errors, as he keeps on saying. He says that he could have listed not 50, but 250. Not trivial, but of the grossest kind, in quotation marks there. He says that in one set of 167 observations, 117 were wrong. The English Mechanic drops out of this comedy with the obvious title, but developments go on. Evidently, withdrawing its regrets, the Council permitted publication of a criticism of Chambers' edition of Smith's Cycle in monthly notices 40-497, and the language in this criticism by S.W. Burnham was no less interpretable as slanderous than was Sadler's. That Smith's data were, in quotation marks, either roughly approximate or grossly incorrect, and so constantly recurring that it was impossible to explain that they were ordinary errors of observation, close quotation marks. Burnham lists 30 pages of errors. Following is a paper by E.B. Noble, who published 17 pages of instances in which his opinion, Mr. Burnham, had been too severe. Knowing of no objection by Burnham to this reduction, we have left 13 pages of errors in one standard astronomical work, which may fairly be considered as representative of astronomical work in general, inasmuch as it was, in the opinion of the Astronomer Royal, a book of, in quotation marks, sterling merit, close quotation marks. I think that now we have accomplished something. After this, we should all get along more familiarly and agreeably together. 13 pages of errors in one standard astronomical work are reassuring. There is a likable fallibility here. that should make for better relations. If the astronomers were what they think they are, we might as well make squawks of disapproval against alpine summits. As to astronomers who calculate positions of planets, of whom he is one, Newcomb, in Reminiscences of an Astronomer, says, in quotation marks, "The men who have done it are therefore, in intellect, the select few of the human race, an aristocracy above all others in the scale of being," in quotation marks. We can never get along comfortably with such awful selectness, okay, as that. We are grateful to Mr. Sadler in the cause of more comfortable relations. And that's the end of that chapter, it looks like. Okay, so this is starting chapter 6 here. English Mechanic, 56-184. That upon April 25th, 1892, Archdeacon Norrie climbed Mount Ararat. It was his hope that he should find something of archaeologic compensation for his clamberings. There we go. Didn't sound right. He found Noah's Ark. About the same time, Dr. Holden, director of the Lick Observatory, was watching one of the polished and mysterious-looking instruments that, in the new iconology, have replaced the images of saints. Dr. Holden was waiting for the appointed moment of the explosion of a large quantity of dynamite in San Francisco Bay. The moment came. The polished little saint revealed to the faithful scientist. He wrote an account of the record and sent copies to the San Francisco newspapers. Then he learned that the dynamite had not been fired off. He sent a second messenger after the first messenger. And because messengers sometimes have velocities proportional to urgencies, in quotation marks, the observatory escaped ridicule by a narrow margin, close quotation marks. See the observatory, 20-467. This revelation came from Professor Colton, who, though probably faithful to all the saints, and that's in quotation marks, did not like Dr. Holden. The system that Archdeacon Norrie represented lost its power because its claims exceeded all conceivableness, and because, in other respects, of its inertness to the obvious. The system that Dr. Holden represented is not different. There is the same seeing of whatever may be desirable, and the same profound meditations upon the remote, with the same inattention to fairly acceptable starting points. The astronomers like to tell audiences of just what gases are burning in an unimaginably remote star, but have never reasonably made acceptable, for instance, that this Earth is round to start with. Of course, I do not mean to say that this or anything else can be positively proved, but it is depressing to hear it said, so authoritatively, that the round shadow of this Earth upon the moon proves that this Earth is round. whereas records of angular shadows are common. And whereas if this Earth were a cube, its straight sides would cast a rounded shadow upon the convex moon. That the first part of a receding vessel to disappear should be the lower part may be only such an illusion of perspective as that by which railroad tracks seem to dip toward each other in the distance. Meteors sometimes appear over one part of the horizon and then seem to curve down behind the opposite part of the horizon, whereas they describe no such curve because to a string of observers, each observer is at the center of the seeming curve. Once upon a time, about the year 1870, occurred an unusual sporting event. John Hampden, who was noted for his piety and his bad language, whose avowed purpose was to support the principles of this Earth's earliest geodesist, offered to bet 500 pounds that he could prove the flatness of this Earth. Somewhere in England is the Bedford Canal, and along a part of it is a straight, unimpeded view, 6 miles in length. Orthodox doctrine, or the doctrine of the newer orthodoxy, because John Hampden considered that he was orthodox, is that the Earth's curvature is expressible in the formula of 8 inches for the first mile, and then the square of the distance times 8 inches. Now we're getting into math here. I cannot. Okay. I'll leave you all to try to decide what you think about that. For 2 miles, then, the square of 2, or 4, times 8. Now we're getting into more math. I did not sign up for math here. Anyway. An object 6 miles away should be depressed 288 inches, or allowing for refraction, according to Proctor, in parentheses, Old and New Astronomy, close parentheses, 216 inches. Hampden said that an object 6 miles away, upon this part of the Bedford Canal, was not depressed as it should be. Dr. Alfred Russel Wallace took up the bet. Mr. Walsh, editor of The Field, that's a publication, was the stakeholder. A procession went to the Bedford Canal. Objects were looked at through telescopes, or looked for, and the decision was that Hampden had lost. There was rejoicing in the fold of the chosen, though Hampden, in one of his most furious bombardments of verses from the Bible, charged conspiracy and malfeasance and confiscation, and what else I don't know, piously and intemperately, there we go, declaring that he had been defrauded. And just so we are clear on this, I'm not going to get into the shape of the Earth personally, because I just don't want to go there. Anyway, in the English Mechanic 80-40, someone writes to find out about the Bedford Canal experiment. We learned that the experiment had been made again. The correspondent writes that if there were basis to the rumors that he had heard, there must be something wrong with established doctrine. Upon page 138, Lady Blount answers that upon May 11th, 1904, she had gone to the Bedford Canal, accompanied by Mr. E. Clifton, a well-known photographer who was himself uninfluenced by her motives, which were the familiar ones of attempting to restore the old gentleman who first took up the study of telescopic camera, Mr. The first look upon the study of geodesy. There we go, skipped a line. However, she seethes with neither piety nor profanity. She says that with his telescopic camera, Mr. Clifton had photographed a sheet 6 miles away, though by conventional theory, the sheet should have been invisible. In a later number of the English Mechanic, a reproduction of this photograph is published. According to this evidence, this Earth is flat, or is a sphere, enormously greater than is generally supposed. But at the 1901 meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science, so that's what that stands for, Mr. H. Ewell Oldham, Oldham, read a paper upon his investigations at the Bedford Canal. He too showed photographs. In his photographs, everything that should have been invisible was invisible. Let me check on the length of this next paragraph here. It goes on to the next page. Yeah, we're not going to be able to finish that because it keeps going through like half of the next page. So we will stop it there. I'm glad we're sort of getting away from the astronomical objects out in space. We've kind of covered that pretty well in the first 5 or 6 chapters of this book. These other things are still fascinating to me. I don't really claim to know what's going on or what to make of everything that Fort says. And again, like I always say, these books were written about 100 years ago. So you always have to keep that in mind. But there's, again, I don't know, it's just, it's been amazing to read this, just to see Fort's train of thought and way of thinking about all these things. And I mean, if you look at the first book, the Book of the Damned, he talks about objects that are out in space or near Earth that are dropping things, supposedly. At least that's his idea, is that these things that were falling in the Book of the Damned, for anyone that missed that series, all kinds of things, stones, ice, biological matter, they were coming from other masses of land or something that were out there above the atmosphere. And he named them and sort of made a fictional framework for what could be causing these actual events. But anyway, I'm looking forward to see where this goes. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.